welcome to the Green Ring, my note-by-note analysis of Wagner's Der Ring des Nibelungen from first note to last. Today we're doing something very unusual. You actually see my face. Don't worry, this will be the only time. And I'll shrink it down real small in the corner of the screen as we do this tier list of the works of Maurice Ravel. Now, it's tier lists are very usual. You'll see a lot of them on the net. Rarely are they about music, sometimes, but rarely, and much less often about the taste of the particular person making the list. But that's what this one is. And I do have some opinions. In any case, I do want to let you know a couple of things about the tier list. It's not going to be all of Ravel's works. I'm not going to include the art songs or the orchestrations of other composers' work, or and most of the incidental pieces, though some of them I will be doing, because they are particular favorites of mine. Now, the way I'll be doing this is I have it on my computer, a little program that will shuffle everything, and the titles will come up randomly, and I'll talk about them. All right, let's get going with the tier list. Give me a second as I shuffle. All right, Le Gibet from Gaspard de la Nuit. I'm not real fond of this. I know it's quite evocative of the poem that it was inspired by, and it's dark, and it's threatening, but it doesn't really ring my chimes, as they say. So I'm going to have to put that in D tier. Okay, next one. Okay, now I have broken out La Vallée des Cloches from Miroir because it's a particular favorite of mine. I suppose mainly because it's one of the few Ravel piano pieces I can actually play. But it's just wonderfully evocative of the bells, I'm assuming, of Paris, with which he was certainly well familiar, but so mysterious. And it's another deeply heartfelt piece, which never fails to touch me. So it goes up on the A tier. Okay, what have we got next? All right, Bolero. I think Bolero's wonderful. I love it. It's a fascinating exercise in orchestration, of course, and it builds to an absolutely wonderful climax, kind of stunning when it comes to that. And if you haven't seen the animated film Allegro non troppo, you really ought to, because apart from all of the other wonderful classical music it sets to animation, it does a killer bolero. Oh, it's going in B tier. All right, let's spin the wheel. Okay. Ma mère Loy. Loy. I'm probably butchering it. I took French. I should know better. Yes, another suite for piano, this time for piano duet, apparently written specifically so that children could play it. And again, just a delight. One of the most wonderful things he wrote. So I'm going to put that in my A tier. All right, let's spin the wheel. Aha, Daphnis et Chloe. Now, this is a monumental work, and there are some places in it that are just knock your socks off. The opening is especially remarkable. The final dance is just bowls you over. But there are a lot of places in it which I'm not as fond of, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, our next one. Aha, à la manière de Chabrier. Just delicious. And lovely to give that wonderful composer a nod. But given it's kind of a trifle as well, it goes on B tier. Let's see what comes up next. Ah, Valse noble et sentimentale. Wonderful suite of waltzes. Got the name from Schubert, who wrote several Valse noble et sentimentale. It's a wonderful work. I love it. There's a couple of the waltzes that I'm not as fond of. I certainly am ravished by the finale, the last waltz, which quotes all the previous and ends in this wonderful sort of mysterious haze of memory. But I am going to put it on B tier. Oh, very nice. Yes, indeed. The Piano Concerto for the Left Hand. This has got to be my #1 favorite of all Ravel's works. It's in one movement, and it's a remarkable piece, like most of Ravel. It's powerful, it's lyrical, and it's full of jazzy elements. In point of fact, that was a real bone of contention between Ravel and Paul Wittgenstein, the pianist who performed the work at its premiere and for whom it was written. He had had his right arm amputated in World War I. And interestingly, he was the brother of Ludwig Wittgenstein, the great philosopher. In any event, they argued fiercely about the jazz elements. But it's a wonderful piece. So obviously it goes in the A tier. There we go. Oh, very nice. Tombeau de Couperin. Le Tombeau de Couperin. Wonderful set of piano works. Suite, I should say, of piano works. A love letter to 18th century French clavecin music. And, of course, a couple of the movements are not especially well liked, the fugue in particular, but the rest, the prelude, the Forlane, Rigodon, Minuet, and Toccata, all wonderful in their particular ways, so it goes up definitely in my #1. Oh, and I should tell you that I have a personal story. Years ago, I rode the Durango-Silverton Railway. It's a narrow-gauge railway in the Colorado Rockies. And it's kind of a tourist attraction. If you've ever seen the Michael Todd Around the World in 80 Days, they use footage of the Durango-Silverton Railroad when Phileas Fogg crosses the American West. And once you get to Silverton, the tour gives you a meal, a lunch, at this sort of a honky-tonk saloon. There was a little girl playing, ragtime and honky-tonk music on their little upright piano. And I went over to her and complimented her on how well she played, and she confided that she was studying at the University of Colorado. And I said, "Oh, well, what are you playing?" She said, "Well, right now I'm working on Ravel's Le Tombeau de Couperin." And I said, "Oh, you're kidding. Could you play some of it for us?" And she sat right down and played the prelude and did it beautifully. All right, what comes next? Scarbo from Gaspard de la Nuit. Now this is I have to tell you, one of my least favorite Ravel pieces. It's an amazing piece of virtuosity. I guess it's just too angular for me, too harsh. I suppose I'm more fond of the kinder, gentler Ravel. So it's going to have to go on my D list. D tier, I should say. What's next? Minuet sur l'homme d'Aiden. Cute, lovely little piece. Really enjoy it. It's a trifle, so I'm putting it on B tier. All right, let's try again. Oh, here's a nifty one. L'Enfant et les Sortilèges, Ravel's one-act opera. And it's dearly loved. It's hard by me, and I think by a lot of people. It's tough to not make it number one, so I call it a close tie. I loved it so much I did my own English translation, calling it The Kid and the Magic. And it's got all of these wonderful techniques in it. He imitates animals. He imitates the dancing furniture. The fire sings. The wallpaper comes down off the walls. Those of you who know the story know perfectly well what I'm talking about. There's also a duet between two cats. It's just wonderful. I love it to death. So naturally it goes in the A tier. I also have a personal story about L'Enfant. Way back in 1970, when I was just a teenager, my uncle hosted my mother and I on a tour of France and England. And we drove the whole way. Flew over from France to England, but otherwise we drove everywhere. And one of the top things on my uncle's lists of priorities was to visit Montfort-la-Maurie, to see Le Belvedere, Ravel's home. And it was pretty remarkable. And I'll never forget, when we walked out into the little garden in back, my uncle said, "Ah, quelle joie de te retrouver, mon jardin." All right, let's see what comes next. Okay, the Minuet Antique. I especially love its trio. Again, surprisingly heartfelt. The A sections are quite severe, strikingly severe. And of course it's an earlier work. But it's, delicious Ravel, so I will put it in the B tier. Okay, let's take another spin. Oh, computer's taking a minute. All right, well now we get to Miroir. Now I'm putting it on my B list, mainly because while I think La Vallée des Cloches is wonderful, I'm not as excited about the other works. I do like Oiseau Triste and Barque sur l'Océan. Interestingly, I'm not all that fond of the Albarado del Grazioso, which is a big hit of his, but it's still a wonderful work. I still like it a whole lot, so I'm going to put it in B tier. All right, let's try the next one. Okay, Undine from Gaspard de la Nuit. Now I'm breaking it out particularly because it's, again, one of my personal favorites. And it's both furious and mysterious and remarkable. So I love it. Up in A tier it goes. Okay, next. Jadot. Yes, indeed. Never in 1,000 years could I play that. Well, I couldn't play Undine. I couldn't play Tombeau. Love them as much as I do. But I definitely put that in my A tier. Next. All right, the Prelude. Again, kind of a snippet, delicious, has a slight wink to Gershwin, who of course famously asked Ravel to tutor him, to which Ravel responded, why be a second-rate Ravel when you're already a first-rate Gershwin? Ravel owed Gershwin a lot. Okay, next. Rhapsody Espagnole. Now I know that as a Basque, Ravel was especially fond of Spanish music and did a few lovely things. He didn't do all that much, surprisingly, but the ones he did are fascinating, and Rhapsody is wonderfully done, lovely, but for reasons I'm not quite sure about, I don't quite connect with it like other Ravel, so I'm putting it in C tier. Okay, next. Aha, L'heure espagnole. Again, something, you know, that looks back to his Basque roots. And I gotta tell you, I've listened to it a bunch of times and have never been able to prize much out of it. It's supposed to be a comedy, and I just don't find it very funny. And yeah, none of its music has really stuck with me, so I'll put that on the D tier as well. All right, let's see what we got next. Okay, the Introduction et Allegro. It's kind of a student work. It's fun, it's cute, has some moments of excitement, very delicate, but not one of my favorites, so I'm putting it in C tier. All right, let's see what happens next. La Valse. Now, La Valse is one of his greatest pieces. It's something that he loved so much or was so committed to that he orchestrated it. Of course, it's originally for piano. And it's crazed. It's like a Viennese riot in which they pull down the ballroom. It's impressive, but just not really my thing. So I put it on the D tier. All right, let's try the next one. Okay, the sonatine. One which I can play the second movement. The first and the third, not so much. But as you might guess, I think it's just divine. It's one of my favorites, so it's going to go up in A tier. All right, let's try the next thing. Aha! The Piano Concerto in G. Yeah, well, this is number one favorite of mine also. The second movement never fails to reduce me to tears. It's just a marvelous piece. And again, it's got lots of jazz elements and some Spanish elements too. Just a delight front to back. And another personal story, again years ago, I went to a concert conducted by Pierre Boulez and managed to get backstage to stage door Johnny him. And I brought my record of him conducting both the Ravel piano concerti. And he was not pleased. He was annoyed, clearly, that I hadn't brought a recording of his own music. But he signed my record. All right, well, that's it. I know some will be disappointed that I didn't include the string quartet. And I will say that I do love the middle movement. Would probably put it on my B tier. And there'll be some other things that I haven't included. But these are the ones that I'm particularly interested in, fond of. So thanks for listening to me natter on. Feel free to tell me in the comments how wrong I was. Although keep in mind, this is just all about personal opinion. Next we'll be going back to the morphemes that I personally have identified in the ring, which no other analyst has noticed or thought important enough to include, or simply would disagree that they're morphemes at all. So until then, I just want to thank you all for being so kind as to keep watching. Please give this a like. It'd be wonderful if you'd subscribe. The algorithm doesn't like me yet, even though I'm clawing my way to Siegfried, which will still be a ways away. I'm almost done with the writing, but then I have to record and assemble the footage, so it may be a while. But thank you so much, and make sure to stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your week.